last week I went down to Miami, spoke in front of 50 companies that eventually want to exit. Learned a lot. I learned a lot from very smart people last week. And, I think the biggest thing, when companies look at EBITDA, companies look at it as EBITDA. And I don't know if anyone, Christian, Brian, Mark, team leads, anyone, I don't know if everyone is, educating their clients when they're selling on how to increase their EBITDA, how to prepare for an exit. I think we should really implement preparation for an exit because when we get a company for sale, a lot of the times we have to really go through the books and we already do all the work. Brian, I'll just call on you for an example. When you get a company that is thinking about exiting, maybe is a year away, are you helping them prepare for an exit or are you just letting them get back to you and when they're ready, they're ready?
No, we have conversations with people, long-term conversations with them, and those conversations that are a year out are hopefully to help them prepare for an exit. Getting books in line, getting systems in place, trying to get the owner truly absentee, so that their value of the business is decreases, so that the overall value of the business increases. So it comes off of trying to reduce your key man risk that's there. And no, we'll have those conversations, and hopefully over time those guys come back and want to exit with us.
And
But
what's your follow-up
providing
process
value
with that?
a little further out, it's the only cost to us is our time.
Yeah, so a couple of questions. When you're speaking to these owners, and anyone jump in here, Mark, Christian, when you're speaking to these owners, do you give them tips on increasing EBITDA? Do you give them tips on, transitioning out, firing themselves, hiring a CEO, hiring a COO, or are you just, answering their questions? Because this is actually when Mr. Wonderful, he was asking me if I did this, and I didn't even think about coaching or, advising on this level where, I basically train these sellers on exiting. I think it's definitely a need.
Oh, we definitely, I think we sort of do that naturally in the conversations that we're having with them. I mean, those will come back as, as listings down the road. If you're providing value to them, even though if you're not getting a listing, they'll remember the value. It may not be their listing, but they may recommend somebody else to you. Don't worry about the dollar at that moment. Providing the value, you'll get paid back for that value somehow. I can't tell you how. It naturally will come around. So it's definitely worthwhile to assist in any way. And usually we'll end up provide. Obviously, every call is different, but we'll definitely provide recommendations on how they could enhance and make it a more sellable business in the future.
And how do you keep top of mind to these sellers? How do you always ping them at the right times? Do you follow up monthly if they're a year out? Quarterly? How do you follow up with them?
Honestly, probably don't follow up enough in all honesty, but I'll give you an example of one that we're working with for a bathtub remodeler that we've spoken to for like the last year or so. They're very lofty goals, but it's a fantastic company, and hopefully, if they can hit their numbers and grow into the target that they want to get to, and they've made significant strides in the year that we've spoken to them. We're hoping that late this year it turns out to be a really good listing. And we spoke about how to increase that bottom line, how to focus on. They were getting lots of leads, and their conversion rates were quite low on those leads. So they already were getting the leads, so just being able to convert at a higher rate on the leads that are already coming in. There's no additional cost, just increasing the efficiency on those conversions of those leads, and setting up proper procedures, and being able to have the owner working more on the business than in the business. So,
Mhm.
he already has managers in place in the various divisions. He's removing himself little by little and getting systems in place to be able to, do much more of the overseeing quickly setup. So taking him sort of away. They want to sell for 10 million. The valuation about a year ago was honestly closer to five. They've increased revenues decently, and they probably this year will probably do a bottom line of just under two, 1.8 to two. They really need to get over to the two number to get their 10 million out, but they're getting there. And we've
Do
had
you back out the personal? Are there personal expenses, that you have to back out of this?
well, I mean, we've gone over their P&Ls, and I've added those back, for the number
Yeah,
that
that's one
that I'm talking about.
that's one issue that I've seen, with going through P&Ls and numbers preparing for an exit is really mixing when these owners mix their personal expenses with the business expenses. We spoke about this before, Brian, having the clean books is more valuable than having messy books. So as a
So
broker, you or an
your
advisor,
buyer is going to give you a higher multiple with clean numbers. There's more risk associated when those numbers are crappy. I'm not going to go through specific listings, but I mean, I have a listing where the numbers are shit. We've cleaned them up over time, but the numbers are still crap on there in terms of how he separates out supplies and whatnot over there. It's really, until the numbers are clean, that business is not overly sellable.
Just for everyone else here, when you say clean up the books, what are you doing? What are you doing with the owner?
Okay, I'll give you an example on the motels that we're doing right now. I mean, motels are also have a fair amount of cash associated with them that may not necessarily go onto the tax return and whatnot. One of the motels that we're working with reduced its cash intake.
So you're having the seller show more on his books, like show more of the
Show
cash.
show more in his books. If I can, show less personal expenses on the books. That really doesn't always happen, especially on motels. There's a million personal things that go onto the P&L. But those are relatively easy to back out on someone who knows the business on it. So that part's not as bad. But in other businesses, that's a lot harder.
So what do you say to an owner, and everyone here is going to come across this situation. What do you guys say to an owner when he's like, "Well, I don't want to report all my cash. I'm going to have to pay taxes on it."
And it's worthwhile paying taxes for a couple of years to get the value out of the business.
Yeah, I would give them the numbers. I would show them 2 charts. I would show them numbers and how much they would save in cash. If you're gonna report 30 instead of 150, you're saving $120,000. If you report the 150, your multiple goes up. Say it's a 4-time multiple, right? Your multiple goes up from 30 times 4, which is 120, from 150 times 4, which is 600. So where are you making more money? Is it the temporary success or is it the exit down the line?
And
Christian,
the surety of the close. I mean,
and the surety of the close.
as the numbers get cleaner, the business itself is more sellable. Every business owner out there knows that most businesses don't sell. Statistically, most businesses don't sell. So as you clean up the numbers, it becomes a much more sellable business.
And to piggyback on that, Brian, as far as, right now we're in 2024, we're in Q1. A lot of businesses haven't filed their 2023 tax returns.
Hmm.
So what I'm doing with this elevator company, with all these companies that I'm getting, I'm going over the last 2 years of tax returns, and I'm seeing what kind of loan can they, what kind of loan they can get on the business, what a buyer can get.
Hmm.
And then I'm having them adjust their 23 numbers so we can get as high as a price as possible. Now, I want to go into some rebuttals here. I'm sure everyone's getting rebuttals from sellers, buyers, other co-brokers. Please, if anyone has any questions on how to rebuttal things, now's the time to really talk and ask questions so we can help you. Is there anyone that needs help with a situation that they're in that they can't move the needle? I'm sure there's people that I have some questions. I know Cassandra, real quick before we end. Cassandra had a question.
Michael.
Hey.
Hey, I tried to say my name. I just clicked back over. No, I did want to ask you when you were talking about the exit strategies with the different businesses, as far
Sure.
as, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I got your question. She's asking, when you're walking into a business, if an owner is dealing with another broker, and he doesn't like the other broker, he's in an agreement. How do you basically have them break that agreement and move forward with you, right?
Well, I mean, he didn't seem too confident. You could tell he wasn't, very happy. I didn't know that the business was actually for sale. I just went in there as a, cold call, whatever. But when you were saying about, different exit strategies, this and that, I thought, that might, be able to come into play when trying to not necessarily convince someone, because I don't want to go poach someone else's client, but even if it's not someone that already has somebody, even if it's a new potential client, maybe
Yeah.
just like ammo,
Yeah, ammo. I
different
mean,
strategies. Yeah.
the biggest thing that I do is I have small talk. I have small talk with owners, and I try to get my foot in the door with trust right away. So if he understands, like, say you're a restaurant guy, we're talking about restaurants, or a restaurant owner, I'm gonna give him information. I'm talking about food costs, I'm talking about percentages, and this comes along with experience. But
Yeah.
in the beginning, I'm trying to simplify it now. I want to try to simplify it for you. Simplify it for you. I mean, you can obviously use Headstone. Sold tons of restaurants, but you have to understand in the restaurant business. This is just an example. What are the two biggest expenses in the restaurant business? Payroll, cost of goods. If you ask him, listen, you tell him we have buyers. Is your cost of goods payroll together under 50%? And if he says yes, you could tell him it's very healthy. You just test him with little questions, and we can have another training on this on any
Yeah.
industry. We're talking about car washes. I go into
Yeah,
a
that would
car.
be great. Just so I look like I know what I'm talking about, even if in the big picture I don't necessarily yet, but
Yeah, your rent's 9,100. That's 109,000 a year. You know that right away, like on the top of your head. He's like, "Oh my God, how do you?" He's not going to say that, but
yeah.
or 9,100, 109,000 base rent, over 10%, it's tough, 10% is really the threshold,
Yeah.
cost of goods, payroll under 60%, you're at 70%, you're netting 10, 15%, you're making what, a million a year, you're putting in your pocket 100, 150,000, right there. That's why you're not selling it, because you're asking 400. You should be asking 300.
Yeah.
He's like, wow, you're right. Any business, and we can have
Yeah.
trainings on any business.